let's start the talk on Pisces. If any of you saw the animation I put on Instagram a few days ago, you might have noticed I put a shark. Anyone see that? There were a couple of people who asked, like, it's Pisces. Why are we talking about sharks? What's going on? So I'm going to talk to you about Pisces rising. I am going to say, in the spirit of full disclosure, right, that I am a Pisces rising, right? Or I should say I have a Pisces rising. So I'm a little biased, but I have a lot to say about Pisces without going off and saying for, talking more than 10 minutes or so. I guess Pisces rising. We have a couple Pisces influenced people here. I think this is probably the most people we've had with Pisces influences. Let me just get a show of hands. How many suns in Pisces are here who have a sun in Pisces? All right. I know you can't see it for those who are watching from YouTube. We're not going to flip it around. Okay, so we got like 4. How many have moons in Pisces? All right, good number of moon in Pisces. And how many have Pisces rising? Right? Okay. It's like, we're like, oh, like Pisces rising. Like, you about to step? Wow, like we're in a frat. Oh, Pisces? Oh. All right. Going on. See, this is not what you get about Pisces, right? Because I always say to my clients, students, most of what you're reading, I don't know what's going on with astrologers for the last 40, 50 years, but most of what you read about Pisces doesn't gel with the Pisceans I've known and met. They'll say all kinds of they make them sound like sniveling, like sad, puppy dog people who are always on the brink of disaster and just like scarfing down some alcohol, after that, and drunk, never in control of their lives, never understanding what's happening to them. And then you have motherfuckers like Rupert Murdoch, who's a Pisces, right? Or Steve Jobs, Pisces. Or my God, Mitt Romney, Pisces, right? And you go like, well, what is that? So that alludes to the idea of the shark. Because there's 2 fishes when we talk about Pisces, right? And so as I had said before, and I've said in other ways, there's always a fish that's on the surface, and then there's a fish that goes toward the deep. And when you're talking about Pisces, you got to keep both eyes on both fish. So I want to talk to you very briefly about those 2 fishes so we understand why I put Pisces in the Zodiac Mafia, right? Remember, there are 3 signs in the Zodiac Mafia. And both of them, or I should say all 3 of them, have a connection to Venus. So there's Libra, who's the Don of the Zodiac Mafia, right? Then we have Capricorn, which is the capo of the Zodiac Mafia, keep it in line. And the consigliere, right, in terms of the wise counsel, is Pisces. Why? Well, I want to start with going back, and it's going to be something controversial, but we'll get beyond that for the recording. Pisces is one of the signs ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter rules 2 signs. I know people are going to be like, but Neptune rules Pisces, right? That's the modern association and the modern ruler of Pisces. But the traditional one is Jupiter. And Jupiter deals with how we expand and have the broadening of our horizons. So there's 2 ways to look at that. Sagittarius is more the external way. How you do it in the yang way, kind of journeying and crossing seas and going into distant lands and kicking people off their lands and taking, like, this is for Spain. Or, stuff like that, or traveling and enjoying life, thinking about philosophy. All those things are associated with Sagittarius. When we talk about Pisces, it's not just crossing the seas. It's going into the sea. It's going within. So when we're talking about Pisces, we're talking about the inner expansion. The expansion that can happen within the soul. The expansion that can happen in the deeper recesses of the mind. One of the most famous Pisceans for which we can be grateful for things like this and other things like it, is Albert Einstein, right? And Albert Einstein he wasn't in a laboratory in terms of coming up with many of the ideas that he came up with. He used his mind. He's the person who said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Yeah. And the idea is traveling through your mind that you get to the distant recesses of the soul, of the cosmos. Now, what does that mean in terms like, well, Sam, you said that, Pisces is like a shark. Well, the shark, I've come to respect as one of it's 400, first let's start with some facts. It's 450 million years old. Just think about that. That's older than most things on the planet, but definitely our species, right? And there's 500 species of sharks, right? It's not just one thing. But they're also one of nature's most greatest hunters ever developed. Beyond getting about the fear and jaws and all those other things, really in terms of its efficiency and power as a hunter, it's unmatched. I'll tell you something scary about it to give you an illustration of it. Some species of sharks, when they're in the womb, right, they're not actually fed through the mother like we are in utero. They have to eat their siblings. The strongest survives. So they actually devour the other eggs within the mother in order to kind of come out. This is some species of sharks. Others are hatched and things like that. But just think about that for a second. They come out ready to survive. That's one aspect of Pisces. But what is Pisces hunting? What are we talking about when we go into those deeper recesses? On those deeper recesses, we're talking about the level of the soul. That's where it can be active and most useful. Using your imagination. Hunting on the level of how do I access for myself and for others deeper wells of knowledge, deeper wells of understanding that broaden what can happen in the world. That's the best case scenario. When Pisces is not in touch with that, loses touch with that fish, and just swims on the superficial aspects of it, they can become a terror. And the terror becomes because, like, fuck it, I'm bored. I want to see what kind of chaos I can create in my wake. I'm not kidding completely. This often will happen when Pisces loses some sense of that fish, that deeper sense of meaning. What can happen is that they kind of start looking for, like, well, I'm just going to mess with this particular person, or I don't care about this particular thing, and I'm going to go in this particular direction. Why? Because I can, and I want to. And that's where Pisces can become self-destructive to themselves, where they lose the sense of the deeper hunting of the soul, of going deeper in the imagination, going deeper in their meditation, going deeper in terms of their thought process, in order to kind of manifest something that they can give to humanity. Now, why give to humanity? You might remember I said about Aquarius that when we come to the point of Aquarius, we're talking about the broadening of air in terms of wanting to share to other human beings. But what happens in Pisces is that you come to a sense of mind and you use that quality of imagination, and you realize that when you see the multitude of the world, the multitude of possibilities, you can see all the different dimensions of yourself. You can see the dimensions of what you can do in the world, what happens in the world. That can lead to empathy, profound empathy. And sometimes Pisceans are overwhelmed by that sense of empathy. Not knowing, like, am I picking up his shit? My shit? I don't know whose shit I'm picking up. I don't know what's going on. So they actually have to zone out. And I'm serious. If any sign has to literally go in a dark room or kind of like be able to just like really relax and like let it go, it's Pisces. So that you can know what belongs to you. This is especially true for those of you who have a moon in Pisces. You must become shmoo at least once a day where you can just vegetate. Where you can release the form. And you can release all the other things attached to it. The more that you're trying to hold on to that, the more it will drive you crazy, and that other deep, dark fish is swimming off going like, I'm about to go crazy. I'm going to hunt something. But this is not written about in most astrology books. They start talking about like, oh, they're just going to drink and they lose themselves. But why do they lose themselves? Because they lost a part of themselves with that other fish. So the way you connect to that is through taking some time out of your day to get in touch with your soul. Use your imagination. cultivate our draw. This is why, you know, Pisceans are known for their artistic sensibility. You have the creative sensibility because you're dealing with the primal stuff of what makes up the cosmos. The soup, you know, that kind of loosey-goosey energy that is hard to see, that we sometimes call vibe or we can't put our finger on. That's what you're dealing with. That's why I always kind of laugh, and I know this is kind of fucked up, when I meet like a Piscean atheist. I'm like, how does that work for you? I mean, not that you have to believe in God, right? But to say like, well, there's nothing. How do you live with yourself? You know, like, how do you, like, what about those things that you really can't see, but you know somehow are there? You have those premonitions, right? And that's often the case with many Piscean influenced people. There's just some way in which you're in touch with something that's ineffable. And when I say ineffable, just to be clear on what that means for some, it means it's beyond language. So I'm going to tell you something, Pisces, that maybe no one's told you, but I'm going to tell you today. Don't try to F the ineffable. You don't have to F the ineffable. Sometimes you just have to just feel it and just allow yourself to bask in the feeling and the nurturance of that thing that's beyond language that we all share. But you, those who are Piscean influenced, you're in touch with it. And you can tap into that and share with people without even speaking words. Words become almost irrelevant. You can do it in the action, but you have to spend time with it. You have to nurture that power. You have to nurture your gifts. Because if you don't nurture those gifts, if you don't nurture that power, then that's when that shark starts to surface. And it has to go hunting. Now, it's either going to go hunting for other people, or it can go hunting for you. And the way it goes hunting for you is in the ways that you become self-destructive. You start drinking, you start doing other things, you start acting out. Let me have sex with 50 people. Why? I don't know. I just want to fuck everything. And what are you doing? Because I'm effing the ineffable. So that's where you have to be mindful. So that's my message. No fire and brimstone, I guess, today for Pisces, because we had to go deeper into the ocean, and this is where we are. Thank you.